Welcome back to Beyond Revenue, the podcast where we unpack the real-world decisions and tactics behind scalable growth. I'm your host, Michael Jäger. Every episode we focus what actually worked and, just importantly, what didn't, so you can take ideas straight into your own revenue recognition. Today's episode tackles a topic that is everywhere right now, AI and revenue teams. What's real, what's hype, and what should leaders actually be deploying today? To help us cut through the noise, I'm joined by Oisin Connell, a sales leader with over 15 years of experience across various SaaS players. Oisin, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Great to be here.
So before we dive into AI tactics, let's set the stage. Can you give us a quick overview of your background, where your areas of expertise and responsibilities is, and what's the biggest challenge you are actually facing at the moment when scaling revenue across multiple regions?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I've been working in tech for the last 16 years. I started in the trenches of a recruitment agency in San Francisco, understanding how to make 150 calls a day, and then wanted to become a little bit more consultative, moved to Salesforce back in 2011 and really understand what drives salespeople, what motivates the go-to-market team. And I got a lot of exposure to amazing talent back then, and essentially this drove my passion to learn more about sales, to get into leadership teams as well. And then for the past 10 years, I've been managing and developing both account executive teams and SDR teams across EMEA as well. I think one of the biggest factors when it comes to creating predictability in a sales organization and in a revenue organization is ICP clarity is one of the biggest aspects that I've seen. Sometimes I think it's really important when you're acquiring new customers, it's really understanding which are the best customers to land in order to protect the LTV of a customer and also the churn. And I think once you identify the ICP, it's really important to have clarity, not just from the sales organization, but also with the revenue operations and the marketing operations team as well, so that you can land the best customers and then try to replicate that success as well. One of the other things that I think is really important when scaling organizations is to get the math correct, right? So when it comes to forecasting, understand going into each month with predictable pipeline. Typically, it used to be closer to 2x depending on the model, but now it's gone to 3 or 4x coverage. And then on the AE side, it's really understanding the segmentation that you're servicing as well. So if it's on the SMB side or enterprise sales, you have to kind of figure out, is it between that 20 to 30% range for close rates, depending on the product as well, right? That's really important because that could put you in a position to be successful and plan month over month so that you can execute more effectively. And then I think the biggest foundation for success is people, right? I've seen a lot of startups scale very fast with the wrong people, and then it becomes a big problem long term. If you understand what an ideal person looks like, an ideal candidate, or the culture you're trying to build, I usually look for people that, they're curious about business, they're resilient, they can overcome problems, and also they're coachable. So it's not that I don't want to train and develop people, but I also want people that are self-starters and that can essentially work effectively on their own. And this allows you to scale in the right way and not be create instability when you're scaling, right? And then have to do patchwork in the end.
Love it. Yeah, because all these topics is something we're trying to always put into focus, especially ICP clarity is something a lot of companies lack, unfortunately, tremendously. So before we dive into the tactics which worked and the failures, a couple of questions. When it comes to AI and revenue right now, what's the biggest myth you keep hearing?
Yeah, it's super topical right now. It's nearly talked about in every industry, AI, right? I think there's a lot of positives that are bringing from AI, but there's also a lot of negatives there as well, right? So I think one thing that needs to be understood is that AI is not just a strategy in itself. I think a lot of people are thinking, it's just one strategy with AI. But what I've seen is that if you don't have a good go-to-market strategy, you haven't developed your ICP, your marketing to sales handoff is broken, your sales process is not defined, you can scale very fast, but you're just scaling in a messy foundation. And this leads to instability long-term, right? So if you haven't built a good, strong foundation that can be worked manually, and then you don't scale it in the right way, then you can end up having a disaster very, very quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's That's absolutely true. And it's something we're trying to convince with our services as well. So it seems like you have fully our message around it. I really love it, because I believe some companies use AI like they used before this the blockchain, right? We
Mhm.
build blockchain. It's like, what are you building? Yeah. Or we use AI. Well, what are you using AI for? Is quite in it. But let's maybe go a little bit more into detail. What's one manual tasking review teams you think AI kills forever?
Yeah, I think so. In certain ways, I find it a little bit like it's a bit of a tricky one, right? We used to have these sales intelligence teams, right, or intern teams that would help us do a lot of scraping of contact data, right? So looking for ICPs, persona, account research, and I feel like with AI now, that like productivity tax that was there for quite a large team is now has AI that's more focused on finding intent. So looking for digital breadcrumbs, looking for triggers, and then handing it to sales reps very quickly so that they can make like they can send messaging at a very like specific moment in time. And I feel the old way of spray and pray and like hitting the masses, now it's becoming more customized and it's going at the right time for intent. I think this productivity tax and where AI can actually take that it used to take so much time to research
Mm.
personas, to look at the website, to look at the strategy of the business, and now with these AI assistants or AI agents, you can get that information at your fingertips very fast, which allows you to increase conversion rates. And I think this will kill this manual task. The unfortunate thing is it probably will lead to some like downsizing in like intelligence teams or internships, and maybe that will transfer to a different type of role responsibility. Maybe they'll manage those tools moving forward so that they can get their foot in the door to certain companies as well.
Yeah, fair. Interesting point with the reducing of internships. Let's take that maybe later as a quick discussion, because I think there's something companies definitely need to focus on to build their future talents as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not only ending up with that. But let's get started with the tactics, the two tactics which actually led to something, and the one where you learned. So, what was the first tactic you applied which actually led to something? Please explain a little bit the problem in the beginning, what you were trying to solve, and then what was the outcome.
Yeah, so we were trying to figure out how to get actionable insights from a lot of the data that we were running in multiple systems, right? You've got data
Mm.
sitting in potentially in HubSpot and Salesforce and Tableau, and you're constantly week by week trying to figure out what, like, get a finger on the pulse, what's happening with the team. And one of the things that we did is we did a session where we mapped out our core KPIs of what we felt are the most meaningful KPIs within the business. And then we put a weighted score against each KPI to say one is weighted at a certain level. This allowed us to create more of a health score on essentially on the KPIs. And what we did is we built an assistant that was able to, on a daily basis, with a very like minimal export to the assistant to literally map out, okay, here's the team's health score around the KPIs, and on an individual level as well, what's happening. So for
Mm.
example, it could do like look at like the number of calls, number of emails, number of meetings booked, length on the phone, for example, these kind of KPIs. And what allowed us to do from a top level on a daily basis to see how the team is tracking. So what we were trying to do, when if I get back to the beginning, why we set this up, instead of going into an MBR and doing like a post-mortem diagnosis of what actually happened the month prior, we were trying to get ahead of that and on a day-to-day basis kind of steer the ship in the right
Mm.
direction, right? So what allowed me to do with my team leads is for them to be able to say at a top level, yes, we're doing well, we're tracking well on our KPIs, but also then on an individual level, look at like, okay, yes, they're good team leads. They understand what's happening with their team. But if they have 11 people that they need to manage, they need to be able to also get like advice from that data. So we put like a revenue operations assistant within the assistant to like basically give an analysis of what's happening. And for example, you could have a rep that's performing extremely well with low calls, but then you would say, oh, it's because they're on the phone for 2 hours a day. They're handling objections. They're qualifying well. And you could have another rep who had very high activities but no output. So it led to better coaching conversations as well. So, for example, then a team lead could jump in and say, okay, this guy actually, he's not getting, he's not getting by the objections. He's not doing deeper discovery because he's putting in all the effort, but it's not leading to those meaningful calls, which is a big, on the health score, it's a big
Mm.
attribution, right? And that would allow them to then either partner with another AE or SDR to understand how to better qualify, or the manager to develop training based on that. What it led to overall was a better quality in pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And also it led to higher conversion rates for new opportunities that were passed over, because with this assistant, we were able to coach better. And then when we were going into the weekly business reviews and into the monthly business reviews, we had a better overall feeling of what was actually happening month over month, from marketing qualified leads to sales qualified leads to, the ICP and what was working well. So it allowed us to iterate faster and make better decisions on the fly, just by having a good assistant. And the amount of time it took away from me having to pull the reports and doing the analysis myself. Obviously, AI can hallucinate sometimes as well, so you actually need to do a bit deeper dive yourself. But it's just time to do the research and time to actually put all the content together. That was a game changer, and it took away, like, I would say per week hours from me, at least 2 to 3 hours a day, essentially, based on the size of my team, and then for my reps as well. So overall, for the week, it freed up time for them to do higher level tasks that were more big for them as well.
Really nice. Good approach there as well. And it really sharpens your view on what actually matters. What's another tactic where AI helped you?
Yeah, I think one thing that was quite interesting to build from an assistant perspective is to do the account research and persona research. So essentially, again, going back to this productivity tax, like how much time we want reps actively speaking to customers or doing research and doing admin tasks. I built this like crystal ball, essentially, that you could put in a company website into the crystal ball, and it would spit out like understanding of their personas. It would pull in like all the triggers that they would essentially within the last 3 to 6 months of why they would do business with us as well. And then it also did a lot of contact research. It would pull in the top 3 personas that you would target. So if you were selling a financial services app or a HR app or whatever it may be, it would pull in the CFO, pull in the CEO, pull in recent information. Within this as well, it would put in targeted email structures where you could look at like really compelling subject lines, good openers, like why am I targeting you, why now? And then what value we can drive for your business as well. If we could do it as well, it would give you an informal option or a very formal email. And then it would help you develop a call script for a cold call, and then a deeper qualification call based on medic as well. So it gives the opportunity for teams to not have to do all that research on accounts. They can put one account in, spits out all the information, and then you can do the research yourself and sanity check if the discovery script makes sense or if the email structure makes sense as well, right? I think one of the things that, just to mention, this was super helpful, like in terms of time to get it done, and also taking a lot of time to sit down and craft emails can be very monotonous. However, we have also done training so that reps can understand how to craft things themselves, so that they can basically critique what AI is doing. I think if you can't critique it, then you shouldn't send it, right? So it needs to be personalized a bit as well. And my philosophy as well is, like, when I was in SDR, picking a good logo, putting your own personality into the content is really important, because with the amount of, I think at the moment, if you're a prospect, you're getting so much emails, you're getting so much LinkedIn, you need to go back to personalization. You need to stand out, and they can detect it within 2 seconds if it's sent from an AI tool, and it's just going to get bit. So that's also important. It can help in a lot of ways, but it also is important to continue to be personalized.
I think the focus here on that the teams are trained on quality and not on quantity, right? Where a lot of companies try to get more quantity in. I think that's a very nice approach. Perfect. I really like that. I really like that learning. And what was a tactic which you applied which actually didn't work out, and what was your learning out of it?
So we did this in the beginning without structure. So we gave autonomy for reps to be able to build their own assistants and their own messaging. I'm not going to say it was a disaster, but there was a lot of issues around performance gaps. So open rates fluctuate, like the fluctuation was quite strong. Different reps were sending very high quality emails and very low volume, and some were sending a lot of volume and a lot of not so high quality, right? So it was a huge performance gap. I think There's a bit of collateral misuse as well. Some people are using the wrong documentation for marketing or the wrong success stories as well that didn't resonate with the industry or the persona, which is a little not the right way to do it, right? So we didn't have any guardrails implemented, and then a little bit of a brand drift, I would say. So I think if you don't define like the messaging that you're using, some came across as quite informal and lost the touch of the brand, and then it can become like this kind of like LinkedIn informal, hey bro, emails, and then they don't resonate very highly with the high level prospects who appreciate when someone has done their research, understands their business, is reaching out with some sort of value. And it kind of got a little bit muddy, and then we had to like essentially go back, restructure it, redo the training, implement the guardrails, and make sure there was consistency, right? But the only, I suppose, good thing that came out of this is that we were able to see which reps were actually doing very well, and then you're able to replicate that, right? And then standardize it across the team as well.
Nice. Really like it. So let me summarize what we just learned. Yeah, and tactic number one, it was in order to prevent backward-looking analysis. You recommended to install a weekly kind of AI-generated health feed, right? An agent which analyzes all the input and progression you had, and give you and translate that into a performance overview, and then the single weighted score you said. Yeah. And instead of watching or analyzing raw activity volume, it prioritizes quality signals like accepted opportunities, meaningful conversation, etc., and lets managers spot bottlenecks instantly instead of reverse looking. And the result was you could optimize based on real-time data, better coaching, better performance, more precise team management.
Yeah, exactly.
Second tactic was, instead of wasting time with manual search, you installed an automated account and persona research agent, that monitored high volume intent triggers like whatever acquisition, funding rounds, new executives on board, etc., which were not only informative but timely relevant. And the AI built a strategic snapshot more or less for your SDR teams or for the entire buying committee by answering the questions, why you, why now, why we can help. And then reps could take this output from the AI, refine it to their own, either on a cold script or a structured script which fitted to the needs of your potential clients, as well as in emails, which they still had to refine. So you put a lot of training around that. They not just took the output and send it, because people can actually directly see if it's a purely AI generated email. And the result was a shift from a pure cold, inefficient research, high research, to an informed cold outreach, which focused on output instead of admin task. Maybe put it like this.
Yep.
And then the tactic which failed was, while using the AI for all of it, you didn't provide any guardrails and rules around it, so everybody could do more or less whatever they wanted. And so everybody built their own AI messaging, and this led to a quite inconsistent results. How you fixed it was you installed structured guardrails, rules. You build one set on how to operate, and with these processes and structures, you helped to align the entire SDR team with a key learning. And I think that's quite important, and it can be taken all over, is AI scales process and not intuition. So if your structures and process or your fundamentals, your backbone is undefined and not in place, you're just automating a mess, and it will result in no good results and no performance, which means you need to structure first. You build a centralized framework before you can really leverage AI. Yeah. Oisin, anything to add? Did I summarize it correctly?
No, you summarized it perfectly. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think going back to the intuition thing is really important, right? It's like, I think reps, if they rely too heavily on AI, right, a prospect gets back or a customer gets back, and they're trying to analyze what that person is saying via email and then creating an email back with AI. A lot of the times, if they go with their gut or intuition, they know a deal is actually going to happen, or they know it's not going to happen. I think a lot of the times AI can sometimes trick you into like believing what you want to believe and maybe give you some happy years that the deal is going to happen. But if you feel it and you're good, oh, maybe this one isn't going to happen based on the feedback I'm getting. I think there's bigger learnings that we still need to do as people, right? Because people still buy from people, right? They need to speak to people. It still need to be able to build rapport. You need to have a connection with the person that you're speaking to. They need to see the value that you bring. And I think a lot of the times I think when you're in competition with other salespeople, it's the person that sells the best, has the best sales process, and is that helping them coach them around their business goes better. And that's where they lose the deal. It's not necessarily always on the product. So it's really important to go back to the human element and the human touch when you're prospecting or when you're doing qualifications. It's really important, right?
Love it. Thank you very much for sharing such practical insights. Before we close the episode, where can people reach you? Is it LinkedIn or?
Yeah, LinkedIn's perfect. Yeah.
So that's it for today's episode of Beyond Revenue. Thank you again for joining us and sharing such practical insights. That was really helpful. I think a lot of people could learn here something and apply it in the future. If this episode resonated with you, if you liked it, if you have people around you where you think this is interesting, please share the episode with your peer group. Every new episode drops every Friday. I'm your host, Michael Jäger, and thank you very much for your time. And Oisin, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Michael. It was great speaking today. Cheers.
Cheers.